You know what I have more fatigue of than compassion? This shit.
I love that.
You know what I'm way more fatigued by? Looking at the outcomes of a world without compassion, a world
Yes.
without love. I am fatigued by that. And if the remedy is love, then I'm going to figure out how to sum it up. I'm going to figure out how to summon that energy inside myself so that I can offer that to the world. It can be hard in the midst of so much violence, oppression, and despair to believe in a just, loving, and compassionate world. I'm also clear that if ever we need a collective hold of that possibility, it is now. Mundane Miracles with Sonya Renee Taylor is a podcast where I share stories, reflections, anecdotes, and epiphanies from my daily existence in an effort to collect evidence that life is truly loving and kind, full of intention, guiding us all toward greater love, grace, and compassion, proving that if we learn to look and listen, we will hear and see that life is indeed unfolding for our highest good. Join me as I share evidence that life is happening on purpose with radical love in service of our highest good, even when it sucks, especially when it sucks.
When I let my grief take up all the space of 1,000 oceans that were washing over me every day, I have to say, I felt joy. I felt joy, oh boy. I felt unexpected, unusual, surprising waves of joy.
I want to invite you to this really cool thing I am leading. And I feel like I haven't been leading a lot of things lately. I want to invite you to your intro to intuitive astrology with Sonya Renee Taylor. It is an astro workshop on August 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's a Friday. And in this workshop, I'm going to be talking about my practice for intuitively reading astrology natal charts. How do I understand the sun, the moon, and the rising sign through an intuitive relationship to the planets? I am someone who came to astrology through guidance, through spiritual guidance, and through listening and learning from others, but without formal education. And it just seemed like life was like, hey, we want to tell you something about this. Can you tune in? Something began being revealed to me that was showing me how we can look at these planets and these placements and understand them from an intuitive relationship that we already have with the natural world, an intuitive relationship that we already have with the sun, that we already have with the moon, that we already have with understanding something being on the horizon, that all of those things give us information about how we might understand our own charts. So I hope that you will join me August 29th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for your intro to intuitive astrology. I'm super excited. I'm going to be live. I'm going to be talking to y'all. We're going to be answering questions and looking at charts and talking about how we create these interpretations. So I hope you'll join me. Hearts. Bye. Hey, 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 Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mundane Miracles with Sonya Renee Taylor, the podcast where we collect evidence that life is happening on purpose with radical self-love in service of our highest good, even when it sucks, especially when it sucks. And I am your host, Sonya Renee Taylor, who has been away from you for a very, very, very long time. And I have come back with reinforcements. And one of my favorite humans on the planet, Dr. Shannon Weber, the faithful director of content and digital communications with Sonya Renee Taylor Inc. I guess we are. Basically, Shannon keeps the ship afloat. If you see things that actually make it out into the world, Shannon probably made that happen. Yeah, she is the conduit for my ideas, the things that are in my brain, actually making it out to you all. So she is also the producer of this podcast. And I love her so much. And today she is going to join us for a Q&A episode. So I'm going to let Shannon take it away.
Yay! I am so happy to be here. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Sonya. And I am just so happy and excited for all the things that we work on together. And I'm very excited to be doing this Q&A special episode with questions from folks on Patreon who we had asked to send us their questions, things that they would like you to answer, things that there have been on their mind, or things from other episodes that you had mentioned. The first question is from Elizabeth S. She says, I am an empath and navigating the world right now is challenging. I've deeply studied this for the last 35 plus years, and I would love to hear Sonya's take. I'm always trying to find balance with doing the work. For me, this means justice work and my extreme sensitivity, and I know it's an inside job.
Indeed. Thanks for that question, Elizabeth. I want to say Elizabeth is like our super Patreon subscriber. She is.
It's true.
So Elizabeth Sadhu, I think is her last name. And
Yes.
Elizabeth is just just such a light in our community. And let me just stop and shout out our Patreon community that makes so much possible. The people who support us on Patreon really do provide so much resource that allows us to really live into our values of like a liberatory framework that isn't consumed by capitalism, where each of us are just like trying to figure out how to work to make money. And instead, we are doing something that we genuinely love and that feels like an authentic offering from us, supported by the community who gets blessed by it. And that to me is an economy of reciprocity and an economy of right relationship. And definitely the thing that I am hoping that inside of our structure, we get to model for the larger world. So shout out Patreon for living the practice and helping us live the practice. I so appreciate you. And to Elizabeth's question about empathy and like, what do we do as empaths to navigate these times that are filled with so much energy when we are sort of energetic sponges? And, the truth of the matter is I don't have a clear answer to that because it's a practice I'm living in right now in my own actual experience, existence. I am learning what it means to have energetic boundaries. I am a person who also, I don't know, the title, the label of empath doesn't feel like most titles, just doesn't feel super resonant for me. But what is true is I am highly sensitive to the energies and emotions of other people. And a part of that is I think my natural wiring. A part of that is a hypervigilant stance from trauma experiences as a child. Is the survival skill of needing to be tuned into what was happening to everyone to make sure that I was going to be safe. And so a lot of what we have developed as empaths are also trauma responses. And what I have been practicing is learning how to regulate my nervous system such that people get to have their energetic experience and I get to remain in my sovereignty. And there are both practices that I do that help me do that. There is a particular meditation that I do as part of a school that I'm in that is about creating an energetic, literally we just call it a tube of light, an energetic boundary every day. Every morning I wake up and I do this meditation, and it both grounds me into relationship with the land. It connects me to my relationship with the divine. It invites me to have those two parts of me meet in the heart space. And then I surround myself, visualizing myself surrounded in a tube of light that is the light of my own sovereignty, the light of my own energetic alignment and presence. And from that place, I have less permeability. And I think part of, some of these activities, these practices that I talk about, people are like, if you are a person who is highly practical, first of all, if you're a person who's highly practical and you're tuning into mundane miracles, welcome. I'm glad you're on a different. I was like, I don't know how you got here if you're highly practical. But other than you're inquisitive and something is nudging you elsewhere. But, like, am I walking around with an actual tube around me? No. But am I aware in my own energetic presence to a heightened sense of boundary?
Mhm.
Yes. Right. Like, you can have some esoteric argument about energy fields or wherever else. And I'm not here to debate that with people. What I am here to say is that what we practice becomes our lived reality. That I am here to say. And as we practice, so the practice of saying every day I wake up and I fortify my own field, I say, this is me. This is where I begin. And I also get to decide where I end and you begin. And we do not have to bleed into each other in every way. There is a certain level of energetic overlap that is inevitable. We are in each other's field. Like if you closed your eyes and somebody started standing real close to you, you would sense them. Why? Because we have an energetic field that we are constantly sensing into. And so there is a way in which we are meant to be impacted by one another. It is part of the design of making us remember that we are collective, that we are actually a unified organism moving through life. That's part of that reason. It's like, guess what? This is what makes us have a sense of outrage to murder, right? Because there is a part of us that is like, oh, that too is some part of me. And we know at some level that is beyond language that harming another has an impact on us. And so we are not to disconnect that, like I'm not trying to sever that connection with other people. What I am trying to do is allow other people to have their journey, regardless of how I feel about it, regardless of whether or not it makes me feel like I would like some other outcome for their life. And mostly, I would like some other outcome for their life because the one that they're having doesn't feel, if it doesn't feel good to them and I'm connected, then it doesn't feel good to me. Right. And so then I am now feeling whatever awful thing it is you're feeling, and I don't want to feel that. So now I'm overly involved in your life so that I don't have to feel the thing that is discomforting you. Part of my work is to feel and then to allow that feeling to pass through. I did a interview for an online summit, the Collective Trauma Summit, which I want them to rename to the Collective Trauma and Healing Summit or the Collective Healing Summit. I don't want to collectively hang out in my trauma or anybody else. However, there are lots of amazing speakers and conversations happening at that summit, and it's free and it's online, and I invite you all to check it out. But inside of that conversation, I was talking about how every emotion in us is just an energy that is asking to come home, is asking to be acknowledged and invited in and tended to, witnessed, and then it dissipates. And the reason that the energy persists or the emotion persists is because we resist it. And so it has to knock louder, it has to scream at us louder, it has to act itself out in our larger external world to try to get our attention. But that which we will tend to and invite in doesn't have to act out in that way. And so my experience is that when I am overly emotionally invested in someone else, it's because there's some aspect of my own emotion on the doorstep asking to come in that I don't want to let come in. And so instead, I am trying to control your behavior so that I feel better. And there's a way in which that, particularly if you are an empath and it looks like you just want to help and you just care so much, it looks so noble. It looks so caring, and what a generous, caring person you are. And it's actually not coming from that. And I think that's the hard thing for us empaths to acknowledge, is that our empathy actually underneath it is really selfish. Really an act of self-centeredness. I need you to change so that my nervous system regulates. As opposed to, I need you to be sovereign and I need to be sovereign, which means the experience you are having, no matter how uncomfortable it makes me, is your journey. And sovereignty means that you get to have your journey. And my job is to tend to the emotional child on my porch asking for my attention, asking to come inside and be witnessed. Because really, it just means there's something unhealed in me that your thing is kicking up, that actually the only thing that will tend to it is my healing of that part, not your changed behavior, my healing. And so when we're having these extreme reactions to other people's experiences, even the ones that are the most enraging, the most frustrating, when we're talking about watching a genocide, right? There is a part of us that absolutely should be engaged and outraged and want to move towards justice. But if it is coming from that place in you that is saying, I need this to stop because it's kicking up a bunch of stuff I don't want to feel about my own unhealed things, the invitation is to tend to that which is yelling for your attention inside of you, so that what you offer to the collective in the effort of restoring justice, in the effort of bringing into being right relationship and harmony in the collective, what you're offering comes from your sovereignty and not from your trauma. Because what we give from our trauma only carries with it the resonance of trauma, which only adds to trauma. It is actually this pouring more of the same recipe into the situation with a shinier face, with a better, with better PR. But when you actually tend to your healing, then what you offer to any situation is a new energy, an energy that actually has the ability to transform the circumstances because it comes from a different source than the circumstance itself. Does that make sense?
So much sense and so relatable. I think for so many of us who listen to this podcast and follow your work, I'm guessing that that is very relatable for so many of us. Um, and I think goes back to your point about developing a sense of radical permission for your own sovereignty, and also giving from your overflow instead of, I have to control the situation. I have to be able to feel safe based on an external source for my safety, or latching your sense of safety onto other people's nervous systems, which
Yeah.
is not going to be a recipe for healing.
Yeah, it's a recipe for dysregulation at a global level. And we are looking at it. We are looking at a globally dysregulated collective body. And the most potent thing that we can give to a collectively dysregulated body is our own regulation, is our own tending to and lovingly parenting the parts of us that are asking for our attention. And from that location, you'd be amazed what you'll be led to do. It does not make you ineffectual in servicing justice. It makes you far more effectual. And it also makes you not an limited resource that this system hopes it can deplete so that you're out of the equation.
That is extremely powerful. Thank you. And thank you to Elizabeth for.
Thank you, Beth, for a good question.
Hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you,
So I think related to this, actually, Colleen M had a question around compassion fatigue and wants to know, what are your practices, prayers, or gentle rituals for when you're in compassion fatigue? I guess essentially like navigating these systems that keep promoting harm, and what do you do
Yeah.
trying to connect with folks and then having that compassion fatigue for the ways that people are getting things
Mhm.
wrong.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. I had a friend once tell me that I got to get the exact language of it because it was very, very funny. Um, what was the word? She called me like offensively compassionate or something, something to that effect. She was like, "You've always been offensively compassionate." Like, what? So I say that to say that there is an aspect, I don't know if I get much compassion fatigue because I'm kind of
Mm.
wired to 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 really like I just really understand how we were made. I really get it. I really get why we are the way we are as a species. Um, and this actually does fit really neatly into the first question because it's that empathy that makes me a codependent. I
Mm.
get it so much. And so I want to just help because I so understand and let me, like it can turn into that. But part of what I do, right, is I stay very close to and in proximity to my own journey. I don't forget who I was before. I don't forget where I've been. And there are some people who may be listening to this podcast and you have been saintly. Bless your heart. That's awesome. I have not been one of those people. And while, it's funny because I was talking to someone this past weekend and I realized that there are times where I recount my history and I really make it sound like I was like a deplorable person, which is not true either. Like I've always been at the seed of me a person who cares about other people and cares about justice and cares about the world. That has been true of me since my childhood. And I also uh was a liar and I also was manipulative and I also was sneaky and I also was judgmental and harsh. I also was very fearful and maneuvering. Like I have a list of less than stellar personality characteristics. And I know what it has taken for those things to transform. I know what it takes to change. And it's fucking hard.
Mm.
It's hard. And it's hard. And we do not live in a world that gives you a lot of incentive for it.
Mm.
So, of course, we are stuck as a collective. Of course, we are trapped in our own stories. Of course, we are fearful. Of course, we are cruel and, um, angry and harsh with one another. Like, of course, we are what we are. We are a function of the circumstances that we have been cultivated in. And those circumstances create a particular kind of thing. And so, when I move towards judgmentality, which is actually how compassion fatigue shows up for me, is I just start judging you for all the things you're not doing that I think you should, and all the ways you are that I wish you weren't, et cetera, et cetera. I really do pause and remember where I am and where I've been. And, one of the things my therapist says that I love her so much for, she says, give it love. Like, whatever it is that feels so wrong, that feels so misaligned, that feels like, the thing that they're like, that's wrong and it needs to change. The thing that is most potent in changing it is love.
Mm.
People keep waiting for there to be a better answer. And I'm sorry, there isn't one, y'all. Like, I'm sorry. I said it. Jesus said it. MLK said it. Like, you name the entity throughout time, the answer has been the same.
Mm.
We are like, but that's hard. So we don't want to do it. But that's hard. It's much easier to be indignant and judgmental. It's much easier to be like, you're wrong and bad and you'll never change it. I'd rather write you off. That is easier work. And fine, except we're living in the result of that work. We're looking at the world we have built oriented toward that direction.
Mm.
For me, I'm just, what I have more fatigue of than compassion? This shit.
I love that.
You know what I'm way more fatigued by? Looking at the outcomes of a world without compassion, a world without love. I am fatigued by that. And if the remedy is love, then I'm going to figure out how to sum it up. I'm going to figure out how to summon that energy inside myself so that I can offer that to the world. Mm. It's the thing that works. And at some point, I'm just like, I like results. It's the Capricorn rising in me. I like results. And so I would rather do the thing that seems to have results. In every place I have ever put the intentionality of my love, something beautiful has blossomed. Every single time. I know it works. And so that's how I keep coming back to compassion when I find the tank running low. I just remember, but for the grace of God, there go I. And the only thing that's ever actually changed the material circumstances of my life consistently has been love. I guess I need to go back to that.
I think that's a really powerful message, especially when you were talking, it immediately made me think of lefty movements and there being this thirst for justice and accountability. And that doesn't necessarily always go down this path of centering love. It's like,
yes,
can be a call for you're doing this wrong or
justice
punishment.
and accountability without love is just punishment. It's carceral.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always find myself being like, what progressive movement are you in where you are replicating the tactics of the state? Again, once we recognize our own incongruence, our own hypocrisy, right? And not from the like judgment and shame location, but just from the, yep, I was baked in the same cake. I was been marinating in the same sauce as everybody else, and I have it. And when I say, what is the world I want to live in, right? I have great examples of the world I don't want to live in. I say to myself, well, what what are the conditions and circumstances, what is present um, in me that I want to see come into being that isn't out there? What's the opposite of what I'm looking at, right? Or not even just the opposite, but the unimagined from what it is that I am seeing every day. And, you know, like justice without love is cruelty. You know, I was like, I know in my bones, I know epigenetically what it means for people to decide that they are uh, ferreting justice, right? And then hanging my ancestors in the name of justice, you know? And so I'm not interested in a justice without love. We've seen that world. That's called the Inquisition. That's like that's the same thing we're in. So if your interest is justice and it is absent of love, you are actually just recreating the world we're in already.
And is it really justice at that point
That's
too?
not, it's not justice. It's retribution.
Yeah.
So just call it that. No, I want revenge. And just tell the truth about it at least, right? So that we're not pretending we're doing something we're not doing. I don't want justice. I want revenge. Because justice requires love.
Mm-hmm. And if we're wanting revenge, like there's so many layers of hurt and trauma below that that is really in need of healing as well.
Maybe we just want grief.
Yeah.
Maybe we just want to be witnessed in our grief. Maybe we just want to be with the pain and want the pain to be witnessed, right? And again, like I said before, when something comes to our doorstep, it's saying, will you let me in? Not will you come outside and shoot up everybody who did what, you know? Like I always think it's so interesting the places where we find retribution acceptable and then where we don't, right? Like we're in these communities where we're like, someone needs to pay and someone needs to be accountable. But you know, then we're also like, drive-by gang violence is so bad. And I'm like, you mean the thing where they shot the guy and so then his friends came back and shot up them as retribution? You mean that thing that also you want just at a structural governmental scale, which then makes it look nicer? It's the same impulse. And so what actually do we want healed such that we don't have to continue to be in cycles of retribution? Can we get to the thing underneath? Yeah.
And be able to feel safe and to concretely be in a material conditions where we are safe without having to be we're safe from the other or we're safe from.
Here's the thing that I think is one of the most difficult things to make peace with. It certainly has been for me. Safety is an illusion. You are a mortal being on a planet with hurricanes and shit that falls from the sky and cars that move fast and animals that will eat you. And guess what? Mortality is real. You are gonna die. And every time I say it, somebody gets mad at me and they write at me like, I can't believe you said that. Hello. It is the only known fact on the planet is that you are absolutely going to leave here, not in this body. It's the only guaranteed piece of information. And something will kill you. It will be a disease in your body. It will be your heart giving out. It will be a flood. It will be a car accident. It will be any number of things. And do we want a world where the things that kill us are not a manifestation of our trauma? I want that world. I want a world where my cousin, who was murdered at 16 3 weeks ago, was not shot by another young Black man. I want that world 100%. And I don't get that world by presuming that we can make the world fail proof from death. It's not. That is not the truth. But what I do, the way I do get closer to that world is by saying, how do I be safe for myself? How do I be a safety in my own being? Because the more I am a safe location in my own being, the more I become a safe location for the collective. I add to the experience of safety in the world. Safety not meaning I can protect you from death, but safety meaning I am willing to be a compassionate and loving witness to your journey here on this planet. That's what safety is. Safety is, do we have each other when it's all falling apart? Not that we can keep it from falling apart, but that can we love each other while it does? That's safety. And we need new definitions of safety um, that acknowledge that harm happens, hurt happens, death happens. They will happen. And trying to keep ourselves safe. This is why Israel is starving hundreds of thousands of children in Gaza right now, to keep themselves safe. That is a dangerous notion. The notion that we can and need to be safe from each other is the foundation of the harms that we see in the world. And so if we can create new definitions of safety, safety that's actually about being with one another and being with inherent risk, being with the fact that life is fragile and that we are tender and vulnerable and will be vulnerable because that is the condition of life. But we can be loving while being vulnerable. We can be compassionate and just witnesses to one another's vulnerability, right? We could do that. And I believe that somehow that will help the world feel less risky, less unsafe. But we will not eliminate the possibility of harm in the world. It is part of the condition of life. And there's a part of our journey that is to learn how we make peace with that by becoming so safe in here that what happens out there does not rock this. Right? It may quiver, it may tremble. And when it does, is there someone beside me who can hold me up a little bit, who can fortify me a little? But that I can meet the conditions of life with a sturdiness inside of myself. That to me is the practice of safety that I've been living into.
That would revolutionize this whole world that we're in.
You know?
Yeah.
But I feel like we can begin practicing that. Like, in these communities that we're in that think that, like, I'm not looking for utopia. It doesn't exist. And I think that's an important piece of work for people who are, consider themselves progressive, who want to see a just world. A just world does not mean a world without harm. It doesn't mean a world where you don't get your feelings hurt. It doesn't mean a world where people don't do something that you don't like or that feels unfair or unjust. That's not the word. That will not exist because humans are human. And so we better learn how to develop the kind of facility and strength inside of ourselves to be with harm without becoming harmful. That is the world I'm interested in creating. Can I be with harm in such a way that my fortification helps transform conditions? That's the world I'm interested in. And that is an inside out job, not the other way around.
Shadow work.
That, it takes us back to that earlier question. What in me is overly, and why am I so empathetic? Oh, what's going on underneath that? Why am I so rageful and angry at the other? What's going on underneath that? Why do I need safety? What's the real story underneath that? Get underneath the hood and figure out what's moving and tend to it.
Well, speaking of anger,
Mhm.
we have someone that was asking about anger. Becca S. wanted to know what your practices are around moving through anger, especially in productive or healing ways.
Ooh, yeah. You guys are asking all the questions about the things that are really my growing edges. I am, anger has been a challenging emotion for me. It's not. Let me see. Let me actually lean into, I can get angry. But I think that for me, the wire is so long. Like the what it takes to make me angry is so long. This again goes back to my like over hyper vigilant, let me take care of you wiring. Where there are other people who their wiring is, I get angry immediately. First place I go is anger, right? But either way it goes, whether it takes you a long time to get there or you get there real fast, it is still the work of what is actually underneath this. Every emotion that I feel, part of my practice is, can I let the emotion in without the story? Can I have a feeling without a story? Because the story is so and so did dot, 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 dot. And that's why I'm angry. Or if they would have, they did or they didn't do, they are doing, right? It's usually someone else's actions or inactions are there for making me angry. And part of what comes up for me when I'm being asked to work with anger is, all right, this is an emotion, right? It doesn't need a narration. It's an emotion. Can I feel it? Right? And can I locate what it feels like in my body? Right? What is anger doing in the physical body? It's making my heart beat fast. It's making my face feel flush and hot. It's making my skin feel tingly. It's making me feel like I want to burst out of my skin. That is the physical experience I'm having. Right? And so, can I just be with that? Can I just sit in it? We are so wired to be reactive. Everything we feel, we think then needs to be expressed in some way immediately. And so we do it without consciousness. And because we haven't looked under the hood and we haven't addressed all the things that are going on underneath there, then whatever reactive response that we make is actually about our trauma and never about the actual thing, which once again makes us ineffectual. And even if you're effectual in the short term, you're ineffectual in the long term. And you know how I know you're ineffectual in the long term? Because all the shit is still here. Because everything it is that we've been saying we want done with is not done. And it's not done because the energy under which we are doing it is not congruent with change. It's an energy that reinforces the circumstance. And so, actually, what happens when I sit with my anger and just sit with it is I get tapped into pure power. Without the story, anger is just energy, catalyzing intensified energy. And if I can take that energy and connect it to conscious action, I am powerful beyond belief. But if I can only actualize that energy through some sort of narration of the mind, some story, the thing that's underneath it, then again, is just my shit. It's not powerful. It's weak. It's weak because my story underneath it is that I'm weak. And now I need to stand up for myself because I didn't when I was a kid and da 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 da. It comes from the location of our belief that we're not powerful. And then our anger is trying to prove something. All right. Which again just feeds the story. It's the same energetic loop. But when I come into an embodied experience of my anger and I drop into clarity and consciousness, into presence, my anger has information for me, information about how I might move that is in alignment with my truth. And my truth is not in my head. My truth is in here. My truth is in my core. And for some people, that'll be your gut. For some people, for me, it's my heart. That is where that is. It's not in my mind. And when I drop into that, the most potent expression of whatever it is that life wants to do through me next can manifest itself. But I have to learn to sit in the discomfort. And then I have to learn to hear what's underneath it, right? The most powerful thing I think we can do is slow down and actually sit in a feeling. Can I just sit in it? And then can I allow it to give me information about what it is asking of me? And sometimes it's like, oh, there's something underneath here, and I actually want you to deal with that. Sometimes it wants you to speak up for yourself because you do not do that. And the most powerful and transformative thing you can do in this moment is speak up for yourself. It wants you to trust yourself. Like whatever it is, it will come through if you can slow down enough to just sit in the energy of the experience. The energy will move you, but it will move you from its purest form rather than from your trauma if you slow down and sit in it. That's how I have been practicing working with anger.
And I like that reminder of slowing down helps put you back in with your own alignment for what it is that your truest self needs to know, or what information you need to then move from your core self and not from the trauma, not from the stories.
Yeah, and not from some externalized impulse.
Mhm.
No.
Hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you,
This person, Becca, is facing interpersonal upheaval while trying to navigate severe clinical burnout working in gender affirming care. Lessons, guidance, or wisdom around navigating burnout while also doing healing work, caregiving, and taking care of yourself. And how do you keep moving through grief when new hardships pop up, especially ones out of your control, but that deeply impact you? I feel like I keep running into new heartbreaks, and exhaustion is deafening.
Oh, my dear. So, for those of us who are I'm about to say some things that are going to be complex, or they're challenging to be with because they challenge the conventional notions of how it is that we survive. And I believe that we are at a phase of life where it is time to challenge the conventional notions of how we survive. Again, like I said, you could look around and see what we've made up with our imaginations. It's raggedy. It's raggedy, right? And so perhaps it is time to lean into the imagination of something else. And so I am going to start by saying there is a reason why every time you get on the plane, those people tell you to put the mask on yourself first. It is the most practical piece of advice that anybody has ever given anybody else, which is, hey, don't pass out trying to save somebody else, because then you'll both die. It's very simple. You pass out trying to put the mask on them. Now they don't have no mask and you don't have no mask, and both of y'all are unconscious. That's a bad idea. And oftentimes, many of us are in these services of care that come from, you're going to go all the way back to the first question. They come from our overinvestment in other people as an strategy for regulating our own selves. Some of us are doing work to prove we're good people, to try to save everybody because we didn't get saved, to try to undo some childhood wound. If you are working from that place, you will burn out. It is not a location of sustainability. It will keep dropping you deeper and deeper and deeper into the thing it is you're trying to avoid. It is like trying to drill through iron ore. Like, you can't. And so I would invite you to figure out, what does putting my mask on my face first look like? You know, from the last 3 weeks, life really was like, hey, Sonya, we're going to just hit you with uncomfortable, painful experience after uncomfortable, painful experience, period. Starting first week of July, basically July was like, hey, this is death and violence month in your sphere. And it's going to come back to back to back. My cousin was murdered. A week later, my sister was assaulted. The day after, Andrea died. Like, it was intense. And then 2 weeks after that, I was like, yeah, break up with your former partner again. Like, we've been in it. And it was very clear that there was nothing else that I had capacity to do except to be in it, and to be in it with support. There was nothing else I had capacity to do. And emails didn't get answered. People didn't get responded to. People, like, I was like, I'm sorry, I don't have it. Like, I am at the bottom of my well. And the problem is, we don't want to say that oftentimes because we don't want to be judged for it, because it makes us look weak. It makes us look like, you know, whatever story we have about what it means to not have it. But I encourage you to face that story, to look at it, and to let yourself be vulnerable enough to say, I don't have it, so that people who do can come and support you. I was also the most supported from the most unusual directions over this last month and a half than I've been in ages. And I wasn't smart enough to ask for it. Life designed it that way. Oh, so a bunch of stuff's about to go down. We're going to make sure that you are with people who will take care of you. You're going to make sure you are inside of a family system when your cousin passes. You can't be with your family, but you will be with family, and you will have that sense. We're going to make sure that you are with your friend who you do beautiful, potent ritual with, and who holds the energy of ancestors, so that when your friend passes, you can be in ritual with someone around that. We're going to make sure when you get home, someone who loves you deeply is going to be there to just hold you while you move through this. I didn't know any of this was happening, but life, whose design is better than mine, somehow made sure that everything I needed was there for me. But if I didn't trust it, I would have started trying to rely on my own assessments and tinkerings to try to do what, because in my mind, I was like, oh, this is too much. I need to go retreat by myself. I just need to go be alone. It's not what I needed. It's just what I thought I needed from my mind, which is like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. I need to go shut down. No, it was like, oh, you're overwhelmed. You need support. You need places where you can be vulnerable with people who will hold you in your vulnerability. That's what you need. And I was like, I guess I did need that. Right. And so be vulnerable enough to let people know you are struggling and that you need help, and then let them help you. Stop trying to figure it out by yourself, because it is everything you named, too much to do alone. You are not supposed to do that alone. We are not meant to go through tragedy alone. We are meant to be in community with one another. Mm-hmm. But we are wired to feel weak and then go hide.
That's what I usually do.
Mm-hmm. Right, I'm going in my cave. You know, a friend of mine said they were going through it, and you know, I was like, is there anything you need? And they were like, you know, I'll let you know when I get out of the quicksand. And I was like, I'm pretty certain people need help getting out of quicksand. I am pretty certain you don't get out of quicksand by yourself.
Yeah.
Right? But we think that our minds will tell us that that's what we should do, is go figure it out by ourselves. And that's just the indoctrination of this westernized, individualistic ass structure and system. Stop letting it reinforce itself in the denial of your own care. Stop letting it do that. Stop letting it win that way. Get vulnerable. Tell people you need help. Go talk to your at work and be like, I might need medical leave. And see if you can't get a few weeks of paid medical leave. There are resource will find its way to you. Life wants to take care of you if you trust it. It wants to align so that you can have what you need. It really does. If I can't convince anybody of anything else, I really want y'all to get that part. Life really is on team you. It's just waiting for you to be on team it. And that requires some vulnerability. It requires enough trust to say, let me get outside of my head and go ask for support. Start there. Let me know how it turns out.
Yeah. And I think as someone who suffers from eldest daughter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
it's good to identify those folks that can then be that. And also sometimes some people will surprise you when you let them in, which I realized recently. I was pleasantly surprised. So
Yeah. Yes. And that's why I'm like, if you know, I mean, if more often than not, our willingness to be vulnerable inspires others to help. Like, our best selves desire to be of service. Our best selves desire to be of service to others. We want to be in community. And we're just also wired to not even know how to do it, to be so afraid of it, to not trust it. And so we don't ask for what we need. But when we practice asking, and you don't even have to ask somebody specific, help. Somebody will turn that way. Somebody will be like, oh, somebody asked for help. And so let yourself be surprised by how life delivers you the relief, but know that it desires to, and that the step it needs is for you to say, help me. Hey, you, hey, you, hey, you, hey, you, hey, you, hey, you,
question here from Jasmine. I recall that Sonya mentioned meeting monastic students of Thich Nhat Hanh. I would love to hear more about that. I'm a practitioner in the Plum Village tradition, and I'm so
Mm.
curious about her experience with the tradition, whether at monasteries or with monastics and lay practitioners. Not a clear-cut question, but an eagerness to learn more about that experience with the students of Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the year, I went to the global climate retreat called The Way Out is In, and it was hosted by Christine Figueroa, who is a climate activist. She was the major architect of the Paris Climate Agreement. And she has been a long time Buddhist student and a student of Thich Nhat Hanh in Plum Village. And she came to the revelation that things were not changing because people were not changing. That we could keep trying to activist our way into transformation, or we could become transformation, and from that place see how life wants to move us. And so she began putting on these retreats around the world. So at this point, she's done one in every continent, and she does it in partnership with the monastics from Plum Village. And it was a 7-day retreat in Tanzania, in Arusha, Tanzania. And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience of resting, of being, of just beingness. Like, just can we come to breath? Can we come to this moment? Can we see what arises? And I think that what I loved the most about the monastics, I got to read a few of their birth charts, which was fantastic. It's just interesting to see the chart of someone who's chosen to be in the monastery since they were 13.
Mm.
Like there's a particular kind of path that is embedded in that. But there's just a deep commitment to the path of mindfulness and the path of presence. But what I love about Plum Village specifically is that its intention is to be able to engage the world, not to leave it. We call it socially engaged Buddhism. And I don't identify as a Buddhist, to be clear. I am sort of the pathless path. I am here to find the truth in many, many traditions and to see them as all unique ways in which we understand this journey more clearly. But I find a lot of resonance in what was shared. And what I love about Plum Village is that they are interested in Thich Nhat Hanh was interested in how we create a just world, right? But a just world requires a loving world. And they recognize that and they see the inherent interconnectedness in that. And from that place, that's where the practice comes from. And so it was beautiful to sit with them multiple times a day. We were in meditation, and then we were in practice, we were in Dharma talks. And then, like, I also got to watch a monastic rap. He had bars. He was such an MC. It was so good.
That
it,
sounds
it was
amazing.
it was so much fun. And it was such a, maybe I'll share a clip on Patreon, a little clip.
Yes.
So if you're a Patreon subscriber, you'll get to see one of the monastics dropping bars. I'll share that. Um, but they were also just people, and it just reminded me that, like, we are here for our own unique path, and our paths are, part of an intricate web of humanity that will intersect with each other in all kinds of magical and unusual ways, should we allow it. Yes, and that we're all just full humans here to have a full human experience. And can we do that again with as much alignment to life as we can allow, as we can allow. It was a good time. It was a really beautiful time. And like I said, I find the teachings resonant in many ways, many of the parts of Buddhist teaching to be very resonant. But the work of like coming to presence, chef's kiss.
I think related to that, Dana would like to know, how do you cultivate self-trust?
Yeah, you all are just in my business. Thank you. I was like, have you been like sitting in my prayers or something? What are we like? What are you doing, Patreon? Um, it's one of my biggest lessons. Is cultivating trust. Like, can I trust myself? And part of what I have had to do, and part of I think why this podcast exists, is I have had to collect evidence that I am trustworthy. And that has taken time because I haven't always been trustworthy. Here's what's true is I haven't always been trustworthy. When we spend years operating from our traumatized selves, operating from our abandonment and our wounds, and doing whatever it is that we feel like we have to do to survive, no matter how often it lands us in painful situation after painful situation after painful situation. When you start to come out of that, the instinct that is certainly encouraged by this world we live in, this system we live in, is to shame and judge and beat yourself up for that. You're stupid. I can't believe you've been so stupid. I can't believe like this is some very old Sonya self-talk. I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that. I'm always fucking up. Da 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 da. Right. And then, I think about in The Body Is Not an Apology, how I talk about this concept of meta shame, right? So then I'm shaming myself. And then, I read a book that tells me it's bad to shame myself. Now I have shame for shaming myself. And so it's a really vicious and annoying cycle.
Yeah.
And so instead, what I've been practicing, and this is an ongoing practice, one, I long ago stopped talking mean to myself. It was one of my earliest practices, was like, dude, talk nice to my friend. You're gonna talk nice to my friend. You're gonna talk to my friend like that. And that really helped me. And there are practices in The Body's Not Apology and in the workbook to help you develop that tool inside of your toolkit around compassionate self-talk. But what I had to do after that was begin to collect evidence of my new behaviors, of the new things that I had done, and not just new, but even historical things that I had done that were evidence that I had been a trustworthy steward of my own journey. I had to say, look at this. And like, yes, it's scary and harrowing. Like I think about my times as a young person, surviving my mother's addiction, surviving, growing up and living in, homeless shelters and transitional living programs, and, not having the resources that I needed, or at least that's the way it felt to me. And the strategies that I used to figure out how to navigate the world to become the human that I am today. And can I give myself some credit for that? Can I be like, hey, pumpkin, look where you came from. Look what you made it through. Look what you were able to do with so little, presumably. Right. In retrospect, I recognize that I was never had so little, that I actually have always been incredibly divinely guided and held. And that's why I have had the outcomes I have had. But in the process of talking ourselves into a new perspective, helping ourselves see what we have traversed reminds us that we have been trustworthy stewards of our journey. Reminding myself that I have come through some incredibly harrowing experiences and I can do them. One of the things that comes up often, sometimes I'll listen to tarot readers. And I used to do a very regular tarot practice, like 2 hours every day. It was very robust. But in the early days, I would pull the Tower card and I would just go into crisis and chaos and stress and anxiety. And for anybody who doesn't know tarot, the Tower card means some sort of, it's literally the image in the card is a giant tower that has been struck by lightning. It is on fire and breaking apart, and people are collapsing out of the building. It's not looking very good, the Tower card. But it means dramatic and intense transformation. Something has to crumble, right? Things, whatever fortress you have built up needs to break down. And I used to see that card and I used to just get scared. Oh God, what's about to happen? And now I see the tarot card and be like, just another Tuesday. What has happened is that I trust myself to manage those moments now. Because guess what? They come so often that I'm like, oh, guess what we know how to do? A tower. We know how to do that. And I can trust myself because I have evidence and I have collected it that I know how to meet those moments. And so I really invite you to make a practice, write it down, put it in a book. Like, I am trustworthy because, and every time you do something that validates your own care, your own tending to and nourishing and loving on and guiding and reparenting yourself, write it down so that you soon have a manifesto of reasons why you can trust you. And you can come back to it and see it. Everything I've ever created, and I've said this before about The Body's Not an Apology, and I say about this podcast, everything I have ever created was so that I could remember the lesson. The joy and benefit of that is I get to go back and see the things I created and be like, good job making that thing to get you free, Sonya. And then I'm like, oh, I'm trustworthy. I'm going to figure it out. Even if I have to write a whole book and tell the whole world so that I remember, I'm going to find a way to remember. That's what makes me trustworthy. And I've created a life where I get to look around and see the evidence of my trustworthiness. And so create something that allows you to see the evidence of your trustworthiness so that when you're doubting it, you can go back.
That reminded me of two things. The first being from a millennial perspective, it's your tarot, there's always another tower. That's very relatable.
Yeah.
Thinking about, all the different towers and all the different
We are
pivotal.
living in a consistent tower moment right now. That's
Yeah.
this world we're in. It's, every day is a tower moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're making it, you're making it. All right. We are surviving. We know how to do this. It's why we're still here.
Yeah. Well, and that reminded me too of how it seems that we're so oriented to going towards the next goal and seeking that next goal and then frustrating ourselves. Why don't I have the next thing, the next thing, the next goal, the next dream, the next step that I want? And if we really zoom out of like, this is where I started. These are all the things. Like this is, it's like the adage of, the thing that you wanted, that you have today is what you were searching for, and yesterday. And like really coming to grips with that, that is so important to continually remind ourselves on and to get back into that and seeing it as it is a journey, but we also have already come so far. Like that's just really, that speaks a lot to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Reminding ourselves where we've been and coming back to moment. Like we always have the answer in the right now. And so can we come back to the right now?
Hey you, 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 hey you,
I think this is more a reflection that I think you can reflect on as well. But Samantha says, I always really appreciate when Sonya is able to take current events and happenings in the world and translate them. I find myself pulled in often by the fear and struggling at times to ground into all that is real and not just the fear part. Um,
Yeah.
so I think, if you have any thoughts about how you're able to do that, you're able to um ground into all this real and not just the fear, and when you're giving folks messages that feel so grounding for so many people, like how do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad it feels grounding. And I think that it is yeah, I mean, I say all the time, it's through me, not of me. And so I'm glad that there is something that comes through that feels grounding. But what feels true in terms of my own work of like, how do I ground outside of fear? So here's the benefit of 6 placements in Scorpio is that I am well acquainted with fear. Scorpio is ruled by the planet Pluto, and Pluto governs fear, and our shadows and the things that are underneath it, but it also governs our power. And the invitation all the time is, how do I move from fear to power? How do I move from fear to power? And what is the perspective shift? What is the invitation? What is the invocation that wants to come through me that helps me shift from fear to power? And part of that for me in the right now, so much of these lessons around sovereignty have been really powerful in helping me move from fear to power, because what I really had to just make peace with the fact that, like, we all came here to have an experience. And I won't like some of those experiences. I will not like some of the things some people signed up for. I won't like it. And they are sovereign beings who decided to incarnate, and you get to decide whatever your cosmology is, but mine is, we are souls who decided to come here. Yes, I want to go do the earth thing because there's something I want to experience, something I want to learn, something new I want to try that I tried the last time I was here and it didn't quite work, or whatever it is. But you came here to have your journey, and your journey is yours, no matter how I feel about it. And having a childhood and having a mother who struggled with addiction, as hard as my mother struggled with addiction, was such a powerful teaching in, I can't change her journey. I cannot do it. And trust me, I've tried in every single way I could for decades to change my mother's journey. And my mother's journey was her journey. And once I grieved that, once I just surrendered to that reality, I was able to be like, right, and my journey is mine. And I am responsible for that. And that both means I get to be really afraid sometimes, but it also means I have power. I have some power over how I would like my life to turn out. And the most power that I can have over how I would like my life to turn out is to figure out how I align with life. That's where my greatest power is. And my greatest fear is when I am trying to move differently than life wants to move. And because guess what? The house always wins. It's a it's a rigged game, folks. Life always wins. However life decides life is lifing, always wins, no matter what you, awesome human, would like to do about it. And so the way that I can actually access my power is to figure out how I get on team life. Oh, get off Team Sonya and get on Team Life. You want Team Sonya and Team Life to be the same team. Then you don't have to be afraid, because life, guess what? Life wants. It wants to be in service of your highest good with radical love, even when it sucks. That's what life wants. And if I'm on that team, then I'm going to get that result. But if I'm not on that team, then you're right. I'm going to meet myself in the location of my fear every single day, that I'm going to have to do something different than what life wants. I don't, if I just decided that I'm on team life. Mm. And so every day I move toward, how can I be more in alignment with how life wants to move through me? And what fear in me right now is separating me from how life wants to move. And fear is just another child on the doorstep asking for my attention. Hey, you're scared. What's going on? You can come in, you can talk to me. What's going on? And then I find out what's underneath it. And then something gets free because it's been tended to, it's been seen, it's been witnessed. And then I'm more powerful. I'm more powerfully aligned with how life wants to move through me. And, I recognize that that's not easy, right? Again, I tell people all the time, there's nothing I've ever said that I'm saying to you like it's easy. What I am saying, someone reminded me of something that I said. I saw it on Instagram today, and I was like, I'm so glad people sometimes repost my words so that I can remember them. And I had said, right, it's hard, and it's, people don't do this work because it's hard and it's lonely and it's scary and it's exhausting, and and it just feels like so much sometimes. And that is all true. And guess what? It's hard and lonely and exhausting and scary and feels like so much right now from the location you are in, completely riddled with your fear. Mm. So if you are going to be exhausted and tired and scared and lonely anyway, you might as well do it in service of your liberation. You might as well do it in service of alignment to life. If the circumstances are going to be the circumstances, then get what you can get, which is freedom and power. You have access to freedom and power. Or you can have scared, lonely, exhausted, and tired with no perks, with no benefits. And most of us are living that way: scared, exhausted, tired, and lonely with no benefits. If I'm be scared, tired, exhausted, and lonely, I'm going to try to milk it for as much as I can get out of that experience. If I know my power is on the other side of that scared, tired, exhausted, and lonely, then I'm going to go through it. Because I'm going to go through it anyway. I could just go through it and not get the prize at the end. That to me seems pointless. I want my prize at the end. It makes me think of my friend Andrea Gibson. I really feel like I have been feeling into their energy so potently since they passed. And I'm like, my friend got their prize at the end. It feels very clear to me. My friend was like, I'm going to get what life has for me. And what it has is love, endless amounts of love and connection and inspiration and awe. That is what life has for me. And I want every fucking bit of it. And my friend went out claiming every bit of it. And when they left, they doused all of us with it. So 3 weeks after their death, we're all still reigning in the meteor shower of Andrea Gibson's absolute commitment to get everything they could out of life. I am inspired every moment to live that way. Every single moment. I want everything life has for me. And given that I am pretty convinced it is in service of my highest good and radical love, I want all of it. I want all of it. And I'm willing to face whatever I need to face to get it.
That is so beautifully put, and it's a really good reminder too of, I mean, people often talk about it as like radical acceptance, which I used to be struggle a lot with because I would feel like I just have to lower my standards for what I want. And that just felt like I was giving up and just like to
Mm-hmm.
just accept it, like, it's just giving up on whatever. But when you remind us all that if you're already suffering because something is not the way you want it to be,
Right.
that you can just get on to the other, not just because it's hard,
Sure.
but
Yeah,
you
right.
can, in realizing it is what it is, that you are not the other person that you are trying to change to help yourself feel better, that you care about, that will help your nervous system regulate, when you can make their life the way that you need it to be, etc. When you can get to the other side of that, it really, and speaking from personal experience as well, it's like you can just put down that load and
Yeah.
focus on like, what do I have comparatively more control over, right? Which
Yeah.
is your own
Yeah. Where
self.
do I have agency? Where do I have
Yeah.
agency? And the thing about radical acceptance is acceptance only sucks if you're not convinced that what life is planning for you is better than what you can plan for yourself.
Mm.
All right. And that's the story of control. That what I can think of with my little limited mind is going to be better than whatever it is that orchestrated trees and bees and flowers and oceans and figured out how galaxies suspend themselves in space. Whatever that is that does that, I'm clear I have a better plan. And I want my plan. If you are convinced that your plan is better than life's, then yeah, radical acceptance sucks. Because why would I take your raggedy plan when I could have my plan? Or you could assume, and not even just assume, you could just look around, not at what humans made. This is the key piece. Don't look at what humans made. Because if we look at what humans made, we can see where our ideas get us. The world made by man looks like what man would make: war, famine, disease, Facebook. Like it looks like what humans would make. But the world created at the level of the divine is indeed divine. The fact that we exhale carbon dioxide that would kill us but gets sucked in by the trees so that they can convert it, so that they can give us oxygen so that we can live, and that cycle happens uninterrupted for millions of years, is bananas. Clearly something has a really great design eye, better than mine. And so what would it look like to decide that acceptance is putting down my assessment of how it should be and trusting the greater design might know better
Mm.
and actually desires to give me what I want or something even greater. Yeah. Life becomes much easier to be with from that lens.
Hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you,
It's always, it always just feels like a cozy balm to hear you just like answer Just have you like answering questions and just really digging into them. And it's always just a treat, just like talking with you. And for folks listening, like this reminds me of when we have our meetings, like our weekly work meetings, and I'm just like, we're just talking, and you'll just say some extremely profound, uh, like pearl of wisdom, and I'm always like writing it down, and I'm like, oh, that was so good. Like, I think you should just like carry a recorder around with you as you're just like going through your day, like, making sure, like, got a record of that because, yeah, I just really appreciate that gift that you bring to the world. And I'm really excited that we were able to do this and that we had such great questions from our Patreon folks. And it's not the first time that we've done a sort of Q&A from Patreon. And I'm reminded of how enriching it is to be able
Mm.
to respond to folks in this type of format. Yeah, it just feels really good and generative, and hopefully folks know that they're not alone in experiencing these feelings. And this is such like all of these questions and your responses to them. I felt like they're all so relatable, like so many common threads, so many things that we've been going through as a collective and in our personal lives and how that intersects. So yeah, I'm just really glad and grateful to be part of getting that out to the public. And if there's any last things that you want to share or leave us with for this episode, feel free.
Yeah, I want to just once again thank you all for your grace as an audience who's really let me be in my process and put out podcast episodes when I can, as opposed to any kind of schedule. So thank you for your grace and graciousness with this process. And thank you for these incredible questions and like really just bringing your own vulnerability such that I might respond in kind. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I hope that we continue to grow. I hope that Mundane Miracles continues to meet you exactly where you are in your journey. I had someone message the other day. A friend of mine said, I was just talking to a friend and they were telling me that they were watching this online event. And then they went to the ladies' podcast and listened to all 12 episodes. And they were talking about mundane miracles.
Oh my gosh.
Like, oh, that's fantastic. So thank you for people who are just finding it and deciding to binge listen. Thank you for folks who have been listening and stay inside of connection. And thank you for sharing this, for letting other people know that we are out here and offering what we can for the journey. We are in complex times. And I know that both Shannon and I, our desire is to help the path feel a little easier for all of us. And I think we both know that that requires community.
Yeah.
And so we are grateful to be in community with you all. And until next time, we hope that you remember that life is happening on purpose with radical love in service of your highest good, even when it seems like it sucks, especially when it seems like it sucks. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
You think you are dying, but you are being born.
Mundane Miracles with Sonya Renee Taylor is produced by Sonya Renee Taylor, edited by Dr. Shannon Weber. Our opening music is Joy and Grief by Sean and Abigail Bingson of the Bingsons. Our closing song is Dying by the Bingsons. Join us in the ritual of collecting evidence by rating, commenting, and subscribing to Mundane Miracles on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can get early access to episodes and support our radical love work by becoming a member on Patreon at patreon.com/Sonya Renee Taylor. That's patreon.com/Sonya Renee Taylor.